Let's talk about the pros for a minute, shall we? For the second straight week, the NBA's Saturday night primetime game was played without some of the biggest stars. The Cavs rested LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love against the Clippers. David Stern, I don't know if you remember this, fined Coach Popovich for doing the same thing in 2012, calling it a disservice. But now it's a move that's become more of the norm.
I understand the medical information that we're acquiring. I even understand that we're getting more and more data to protect the players. But this still is an absolute joke. Who is protecting the fans? Who is protecting the game of basketball? Something's got to be done.
Yeah, and if this was any other business, it would be a prosecutable offense. This type of bait and switch maneuver that the NBA allows its teams to pull. And quite frankly, Mike, if you look at this athletic performance teams, these groups that are supposedly preventing injury, when I look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they've been injured all year. So how good are they doing at what they say they can accomplish?
And Hall of Famer Karl Malone weighing in. Strong words for NBA players not playing, telling our Sage Steele, if you don't have at least 10 years experience, get your butt playing. Tell our underpaid service members and police and first responders to rest, damn it. They can't. Malone, well, he knows something a little bit about this. He played in 98% of his team's games in every season but his last. Joining us now to talk more about resting the stars is another star, Ryan Russillo. Thank you so much for being here on Coast to Coast. How are you?
I'm good, Carrie. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there, my man. So listen, the resting players, how do you feel about this? Your take on the Cavs resting their big three?
I'm not anti-rest. I'm not anti-LeBron resting, especially when we look at a chance of him going to 7 straight NBA Finals here. But I am anti the NBA's teams and their players being bad partners for not only us at ESPN and ABC, but TNT. The players love all this extra money. Guys like Reggie Jackson getting max deals, Mike Conley making $30 million a year, LeBron signing for 3 years and $100 million. All of these franchise valuations going through the roof. Nobody's losing money on owning NBA teams. But the problem is on the backside of this, I'm sure we have advertisers that call TNT when big stars aren't playing in these primetime promoted games. And then we have to start figuring out the math inside our own house here. I mean, this is kind of a weird conversation to have because it's us who work here, it's our employees, It's our future, but it's all part of this story. So I think it's a very one-way street right now, and it's something that the commissioner has to get a lot more proactive about in figuring out a way to make sure on these marketed games, not just us selfishly here on Saturday night, but TNT, to make sure that these games are protected because that's where the money is coming in. You don't get to keep all of this money. You don't have this rising cap space just because we like you.
All right, so let's talk about the genesis of this. And I don't know if it really was the genesis, but I mentioned it earlier. Pop rested Tim, Tony, Manu, and Danny Green in 2012 against the Heat. The Spurs, were fined $250,000 by then Commissioner Adam Stern. David Stern, do you think that Adam Silver should do anything about this?
I've talked to Adam Silver about the differences between he and David Stern. And I always felt like Stern, especially when it came to collective bargaining, would make the players kind of the villain, and the players resented that, and it was a typical page out of any of the playbook because he's representing the owners, and that's ultimately the basis of the disagreement. The reason I bring that up, Kerry, is that Silver has been very proactive. When I'd ask him, I'm like, do you still want to look at the players as the villains when it comes time to that? And it was so clear in his answer to me that he did notice that and never wanted to be that guy. He's as pro player as it gets of any of the major commissioners right now. So I think it's a very delicate thing for him to do. And it's also really tough when you're telling a team, this is what is in the best interest of our business arrangements as opposed to what you think is the right thing health-wise. Now, Cleveland had some specific things going on there, but the rest was on the first night on a Saturday of the back-to-back, and then they all play against the Lakers on Sunday. So that one doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. So I think Silver is most likely getting phone calls from really concerned television executives going, okay, this is not a great sign back-to-back weeks. I understand Kerr's problems with their schedule. That Golden State schedule was really, really tough. But you can't sit there and have the valuations of the NBA franchises go through the roof strictly because of the TV money that's guaranteed for the next decade and then say, oh, sorry, business partner, now I'm more worried about our guys resting. Like, I wouldn't watch Saturday night's game, Kerry, and you know me well enough to know that usually I would watch anything that has anything to do with the NBA.
Right. Okay, so a couple of questions here based on what you're saying. Is this more of a scheduling issue, which means that Adam Silver needs to address how scheduling is done, and if scheduling was done differently, perhaps we would not see as many players resting?
Well, I think when you look back at 4 years ago, we had 19 DNP rests and it jumped up to 146 last season. That's in 4 years. So there's part of this is a cool thing to do, right? It's kind of cool if the other two cool guys on the team don't want to play, and I see myself as a tier 1 cool guy or a star on my NBA team, then I don't want to have to rest. So your question about what the NBA can do with scheduling, there's no, like, I know fans will say make it 60 games. Not happening. They're not giving up the inventory. We don't want to give up the inventory on television. We can talk about no back-to-backs. That is not feasibly possible. What I would tell you to do is I would make sure whoever's talking to Commissioner Silver, that Silver is relaying it to his owners, the people that he, again, does work for, that if we're going to have guys that are the marquee faces of this league, we've got to make sure we're doing a better job of playing on games like Saturday night the last 2 weekends. And again, I don't want to make this sound just like it's ESPN or ABC, but TNT as well. Like that's the deal. You wouldn't have Monday Night Football. Now, granted, it's a lot less games. You wouldn't have Monday Night Football, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, and one guy going, you know what, like, I'm just going to, it's week 15.
You're right.
I'm good.
You're right. Well, there's so fewer games, though. So
sure, right. I mean, I understand the analogy wasn't great, but it was just about the
sure, but
guy.
I get what you're saying. Okay, so how about this? We hear guys like, and I've heard Magic Johnson say this, but could you imagine a time in which Magic Johnson or Larry Bird took some time off? How has the league changed so that these old school guys who say, I would never have done that, and these new school guys say, well, the league is different. So physically, what are the demands what demands do they have on them now that they didn't back then? What
demands do they have on them now? I think the year-round basketball and how much more of a focus that is something that we can talk about how these months get stretched out. When you're playing international basketball and the commitment to it, because it was a thing where USA Basketball is like, look, we're tired of guys just kind of showing up and getting hoodies, and then we're not really playing. Like, we have to set up something here. So there's more of a time commitment there. And clearly, there are people watching this right now that are younger that are like, you guys that are older, you're outdated. Like, I don't want to hear about Bird. I want to hear about McHale. I don't want to hear from Karl Malone. And that's fine. Like, my whole point here is that this is not necessarily an anti-rest statement. It's just that, and by the way, like, they've never been treated better. If you've ever traveled with an NBA team, and I'm lucky enough to do it twice, like, it's not a bad deal. So I'm telling you that I'm not going to sit here and bash guys for not playing in a game, but there does seem to be some pettiness at times, whether it's LeBron not playing against Miami. Like, when the Spurs were resting guys, Kerry, it's because they were old. Okay.
In short,
players. So, that one actually makes a little bit more sense, even though it felt like at the time when he got fined, it's like, well, wait a minute, so you're going to do this on this marquee game, and that's when Stern just wasn't having it.